The beautiful, vivid colors of fall are not created, they are revealed. Most of the time, we are green leaves. We go about our daily routines, striving for survival. We spend our days and often our nights coping with work, with children, with parents, with all the responsibilities that consume our lives, trying to fit in some quality time here and there with our loved ones, and maybe, if we're lucky, with ourselves.
Welcome to Zestful Aging, where I interview thoughtful, inspiring, and influential guests who are making their mark on the world and contributing to the common good. Making your mark, big or small, is creating a legacy, and it's one of the proven ways that we can age with vibrance and energy. And Zestful Aging podcast is my legacy. I'm your host, Nicole Christina, psychotherapist and fellow Zestful Ager. Our lovely music is courtesy of Judy Banker, who was a previous guest on Zestful Aging. Find out more about her at judybanker.com. And to find out more about the podcast, my web courses, and other offerings and goodies, you can hop on over to zestfulaging.com. I know that everyone is feeling really stressed and anxious right now. We're all unsettled and feel out of control. So I created a free download for you for maintaining mental health based on my 30 years as a psychotherapist. Just go to zestfulaging.com and it is all yours. Well, I've got my little loyal Jack Russell Sparky right by my side. He's wet from a nice little swim in the creek, so let's begin. We have a great interview for you today. I've been really looking forward to speaking with Rebecca Winn. One of the major themes of the Zestful Aging podcast is resilience, and when you get to middle age, life has most likely dealt you some blows. We've all felt them. But it's how we relate to our grief and sorrow that will really determine how aging will go for us. Will we be left with bitterness and regret, or will we forge ahead accepting and healing with hard-earned wisdom? Today's guest is a highly awarded landscape designer. Her garden has been featured on HGTV, and she's written a magnificent new memoir, 100 Daffodils, about her marriage breakup and past traumas and how she transforms her pain into new growth. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited to have you, and I know you keep hearing this, and I hate to sort of bore you with these accolades.
Oh, no, it's really quite all right.
It's quite all right. Bring it in. What a gorgeous piece of writing.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, my goodness. And I've already shared with you, and my audience knows that I'm a psychotherapist. I have already recommended this to so many of my clients because so many women that I see are these talented, lovely, beautiful people who don't even realize it.
Yes, it is sort of the theme of our generation, I think. We were just a little late for all the empowerment from parenting. That we, at least I and many of my friends, gave to our children. So, I didn't get a lot of that. But
talk about the experience of, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you have a real love for your plants and a deep, just a connection with these plants and appreciation for the individuality of them, how they grow, what they do, how they bloom. How does this mesh with your experience of a woman finding her voice?
Ooh, what a good question. So I am very tuned into nature, and I always or often feel the need to sort of clarify that, because I'm really not a sort of hiking and, camping, a kind of nature girl. I'm a gardens kind of nature girl. I mean, I do love the woods, but I also like my creature comforts. But I gardens and nature for me are an easy entry point into a contemplative place, and I think that it is part of my makeup to be to pay attention. I think mindfulness came very naturally to me, and as an artist, because I really do primarily consider myself an artist, I actually had never once, when people would say, "What do you do?" I had never once said I was a writer until the book came out.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
There's the proof.
Yeah, I really kind of struggled with that identity. But you know what? I struggled with the identity of an artist too at first, which is interesting since I actually have a degree in that. But I am very visual, and so that that observation of the tiny nuances and differences in shading and texture and size and pattern and patterns of growth, all of those things are very present for me. And so one of the things that I really hope that people will take away from this book, and that I've observed that they are, is more of a connection into what surrounds them.
Okay.
Somebody sent me a photograph of a spider web that had been built between a shrub and her fence. And she sent it to me, and she said, for the last 65 years, I would have just swept that away. And now I notice it, and I don't see it as a mess or something that doesn't belong there. I see it as some beautiful creation, and oh my gosh, it makes me so happy. Oh. And she said, because of your book, So, yeah.
It reminds me of when you told the story of the rat mom moving her babies, and there was this wait a minute, this is a rat.
Right.
But that you had this appreciation for, wow, she's going to drown. Right. Or her babies will drown.
Right. Yeah, that was really a very powerful moment. And you may recall that it comes right after the piece Vibra about the rat snake.
Yes.
and I sort of laugh at myself and say, 1 minute I'm thinking, where's the rat snake when you need it?
That's right.
And then
who you wanted to, you had some thoughts that might need to be removed.
Yeah,
in a permanent kind of way.
Yeah, so it was really powerful for me to have that shift in perspective. So I think your first question, which I sort of wandered a little bit away from with my answer, I'm going to circle back around to, because that experience with the rat mama and my experience of nature, the way that ties back into my relationships and how I view my relationships and my connections with people, is that depth of observation. So with the rat, I had the initial reaction that pretty much everybody has. Mm-hmm. Rat equals bad. Rat equals I want you gone. Mm-hmm. And then I observed what was going on and could see more depth of experience for her. She became more of a life form, a living creature with babies and fear and a passion to rescue her tiny little brand newborn babies. And my
it sounds like you identified with her in some way.
My experience of her just broadened as more of a life form. So I think that that's something that we can do not only in our specific direct relationships, but even in relationships broadly, countries, with each other, people who disagree on global issues. I think what we do is we tend to reduce them down to a microcosm of their expanse and their greatness. And if we can expand the way we are willing to view them, then compassion can hardly help but unfold for us.
How much has Jungian psychology influenced your writing?
Well, a lot, actually. The spiritual path that I found and have been on is one that is not a specific religion. It's a sort of global acceptance of global spiritual practices. So, I would say that a fundamental tenet is that there are as many paths to the divine as there are people seeking the divine. And there's also within that a marriage, really, of science and spirituality and psychology and spirituality. And so I actually discovered, again, I'd kind of discovered him a little bit in college, but rediscovered Carl Jung's work through my spiritual community, which is kind of interesting. And then I did a deep dive into that. So the work of James Hollis, Dr. James Hollis, who's a very renowned Jungian psychologist who's written a lot, and he's such an amazing Renaissance man with just the most beautiful command of language. And he was actually a literature professor in his early career, and then went to Switzerland to the original Jung Institute in midlife. But anyway, it was his work that really took me into the Jungian world, and so I'm a member of the Jungian Society locally, and actually there's a Jungian therapist. I'm actually speaking to them in August, which is not at all intimidating. But the Jungian analyst who is going to be interviewing me sent me an email the other day, and she said, I just want you to know I have a hardback and the audio of your book for myself. I bought another copy of your book to keep in my office to loan patients when I can start seeing them in person again. And I have sent 10 copies to colleagues. Yeah. So
wow, what an honor.
Yeah, it is, because I'm not going to lie, I was a little nervous about bringing that aspect to my writing, because I don't have a PhD in psychology, and I don't, I am not a Jungian analyst, but I have done extensive study and participate in that group on a regular basis. And so it was very validating to have her, say all of that. So it's been a big part of me, because I think that the degree to which we are willing to notice our projections, begin to understand how we project, and to become familiar with our shadow, both our dark shadow and our light shadow, which I think is something that you alluded to early at the beginning of the broadcast about, or maybe it was before you were on air, but all these amazing women that are our contemporaries who don't know their brilliance yet. And so that's that light shadow where we project our own greatness onto others who are actually doing it because we are held back by fear or a lack of self-confidence or whatever it is that's held us back. So it's been a big part for me, and I'm so grateful for that, because I also feel that the degree to which we can recognize our own shadow aspects, both the light and the dark, but mostly the dark in this particular instance, again expands our capacity for compassion for others. So I don't know if you can hear that or not, but my cats are having their morning Zoomy. they're running back and forth. They do it twice a day. So if you just hear the thundering,
and my dog just barked, so we got all the animal friends.
Yes, the thundering of tiny paws.
Hello, Zesties. I want to tell you about one of my all-time favorite exercise and stress reduction tools, which I am really relying on during this quarantine. But I've sung its praises for years. The benefits are seemingly endless. It's great for toning and strengthening muscles. It improves your lymph system, your metabolism. It helps with joint pain and balance. And it's even used by NASA astronauts because it's such an efficient way to exercise. And if you're older or you're worried about your balance, you can order a stabilizer bar to hang on to. I'm talking about my Needak Rebounder mini trampoline. I put on my music and I have my own dance party. Because for me, exercise needs to be fun and invigorating. Otherwise, I don't want to do it. Now is not the time for the philosophy of no pain, no gain, because we're in enough pain. This is a way to feel good and energized and have fun. It really does help mood as well. And I like that Needak is made in the USA, and it is really solid. I've had mine for 15 years and it's still in great shape. The Needak Rebounder will help us get through this quarantine in better shape mentally and physically. And there's also a model that folds up if space is an issue. One of my clients puts it on her driveway and uses it while she's watching her kids during the quarantine. Anyway, I can't recommend Needak Rebounders enough. They are a worthwhile investment in your health and overall well-being, especially now. If you are interested in a mini trampoline, please don't buy a cheap one. Those can be actually dangerous, and it is really worth investing in a good quality one. And right now, if you use the coupon code just for Zestful Aging listeners, the code is Zestful. They are going to include a free cover for you. So go to Needak.com. It's NEEDAK.com. And if you have any questions, you can contact me at zestfulaging.com. I really am their biggest fan. So, the shadow aspects. When you go out in your garden, how do you understand the garden in these terms, sort of the light and the shadow? And tell me what that's like. How do you make meaning of your garden? Well, what's the experience like? I'm not trying to get really, sort of difficult, but
No.
Your experience sounds very intense, and there's such a connection, there's such wonder, there's such awe. I'm just curious, when you walk outside, I know you go out early often and I think you bring a coffee or your tea. What does it feel like?
Well, I think that one of the things that I love about time alone in nature is the opportunity to observe the changing of light and shadow in the garden. And so there are many aspects of that that are, some of which are more aesthetic and some of which are more profound. But from an aesthetic standpoint, it reveals, as the light changes, it reveals the changing nature of color and texture and form and even relationship to where we are in the space, right? So as the light changes, things can look nearer or far. They're more clear or they're less clear. They're different shades of green or whatever color they are depending on the light. And so that being a meaning-making person, that also echoes us, right? I mean, as our circumstances change, as the degree to which there is light or a lack of it in our lives at the time, we are different people. We're very complex and complicated, and there are many aspects to all of us. And those show up differently depending on what's going on in our lives, Mm-hmm. So that piece, Bright White Nights, that's actually one of my favorite pieces in the book, and it's talking about that exactly, right? It's going out on these rare nights where there's an enormous amount of diffused light, and yet it is very dark. And so everything that you are so familiar with completely changes and just becomes form. And so anyway, did I answer your question?
Yeah. And we had talked about you reading to us.
Yes.
Is that, are you still willing to do that?
I'm happy to do that. Do you have a preference?
Well, let's see. There's so many good choices. What's your favorite passage?
Ooh.
That's a tough one.
It is. So I will tell you that something that a lot of people are relating to pretty intensely right now is the end of I Am Autumn, because it feels very relevant to the sort of global pandemic environment that we find ourselves in, although obviously I had no knowledge of that when I wrote this. Mm-hmm. So
sure,
does that sound good to you?
Sounds great.
Okay. So just the setup is the piece is called I Am Autumn. And the setup is that the colors that we see in fall foliage, people talk about the trees turning colors in the fall. But the actual science is that the green that we see in those leaves in the spring and the summer is produced because there's chlorophyll coursing through those leaves. And as the temperatures cool and the sunlight is reduced as fall approaches, the chlorophyll begins to draw back from the plant. So the colors of fall are not created, they're revealed. Those are the natural colors of the leaves. So that's the setup. So
and it's very relevant, I think, with aging as well.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so I'm going to start with the last line of this paragraph, which is actually what I just said. The beautiful, vivid colors of fall are not created, they are revealed. Most of the time, we are green leaves. We go about our daily routines, striving for survival. We spend our days and often our nights coping. coping with work, with children, with parents, with all the responsibilities that consume our lives, trying to fit in some quality time here and there with our loved ones, and maybe, if we're lucky, with ourselves. We are bright, shiny, busy green leaves, doing what we must to ensure our survival, until one day a crisis hits and it's impossible to continue with business as usual. In those moments, we are stripped of our ability to hide behind our busyness and are forced to be fully present with this new reality and find within ourselves the internal fortitude that previously lay dormant. Our lovely green facade disintegrates, and all those pressing goals and demands that have consumed our time and attention day in and day out diminish and sometimes completely disappear. In moments of personal cataclysm, something wiser, more resilient, more courageous wakes within us, bringing with it the necessary strength to confront our greatest challenges, no matter how harsh. In those moments, we become autumn, authentic, unmasked, raw, real, powerful, and beautiful. When crisis strips away our masks and guides us inside to our authentic selves, the beauty it reveals can be staggering. When we are unmasked, we are vibrant, we are radiant. When we are wholly ourselves, it is holy. Seasons change, and so do I. And right now, I am autumn.
How was it for you in terms of your own healing to actually write these pieces? I mean, I know you experienced them. I know you've reflected on them. Did you find the writing of these pieces also healing?
Yes, I don't know if you know this or not, but the book actually didn't start out as a book. It started out as journal entries.
I see.
And a friend of mine said, nobody writes in their journal like that.
I'd have to agree with that.
And yet, I Am Autumn was one of the journal entries. It totally was.
Wow.
Yeah. So, so it was specifically a part of my healing, as journaling is.
Wow.
And when it became a book, and that's, kind of a long, sort of funny story, but when it began to form as a collection that would be put in a book, it was not until then that I began to write these with that intention. So both of the pieces in the prologue, The Spiderweb and Form and Formlessness, those were journal entries.
Wow.
I Am Autumn, the Itsy Bitsy Spider, which I wish had a cooler name. But that one about the finding the spider in the log that I'm about to throw on the fire.
Right.
Yeah, that was a journal entry. I mean, I literally sat down and it dropped into me the sort of lesson, the realization in that one about how often we hold on, cling like our life depends on it to something, not realizing that what our life really depends on is letting go. Like that spider wouldn't let go of the log. It was trying to protect itself. And I was like, dude, you have no idea how much worse it almost was for you. And I sat down by the fire watching that log burn and wrote that. So it was huge for me as a as a part of my healing. Huge. And then when it became a book, oh man, that became a whole other lesson.
And what is it like to have yourself just splayed open? I mean, you do not sugarcoat the experience of being in deep grief.
Yeah, girl, that's because I didn't think anybody else was going to be reading it.
Whoops.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you could not be more self-revealing.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Well, I will actually tell you kind of a side story about that, which is that when I submitted the first draft to my editor, who is just an absolutely amazing, amazing human, and a big deal. She's the editor-in-chief of the hardback division of Grand Central, which is, a Big Five publishing house. They use this program called Track Changes, which is terrible, awful. Oh my goodness, it's so difficult. But there's a way to put notes on the side, and most of her notes were like, wow, this is so wise, and oh my gosh, I never thought of it like that, and super positive. But every once in a while she'd say, not my favorite, that consider removing. Well, as I read through all of her notes, I observed that everywhere that she said, I don't know about this, was where I wrote myself like you just described. Where I wrote myself, it's not really all that likable, not very enlightened, kind of bitter and angry. And so I called her and I said, hey, I couldn't help but notice that the only places that you kind of seem to have, notes that were anything other than just, lovely, were places where I wrote myself in a not very,
you
positive
your shadow
way.
side.
Yeah. And I said, did you do that on purpose? And she said, oh, did I do that? I had no idea. And then she said I would have to look back over it. But then she said, well, I think that maybe what happened is by the time you got to that part, I had so fallen in love with you that I felt protective about you. And I said, and I love you for saying that. And I'm not willing to take those out, because this is the truth of transformation. It is messy, and it is hard, and it is gut-wrenching, and it takes courage. And to, in any way, smooth the apparent edges of that would be to not tell the truth. And the truth is, there are no 5 steps to any form of healing. There just aren't. And as I describe it in the book, it's a 1 step forward, 2 steps back, right off the edge of a cliff process, and then you crawl your way back up and try again.
It's not, it's like that kind of crying that's not graceful.
No.
It's, on your knees, fetal position, just racking with grief.
Yeah. So, and you know what? She is such a brilliant and wonderful, amazing editor, and she absolutely saw the truth of what I was saying, and every single bit of that stayed in. There was one particularly catty line that I had in there about Anaconda that I personally removed. She didn't ask me to. It was a great line, though. It was mean and kind of a low blow, but boy, it was poetic. But I took it out because, actually, the reason I took it out was because it was in The Plain Truth, which is the one you might recall about my sort of chaotic struggle with the acceptance of my age because of the age difference with Glenn. And And it was in that piece, and everything else in that piece is really very kind of beautiful. And so, as great as that line was, if if you like that kind of thing, which we all do if we're honest.
That's right. So
it
just
didn't
to
belong
clarify,
there.
Anaconda is, how would you describe her? I don't want to use the wrong word, but she was a woman
She was the
that
other
your
woman.
partner was involved with. Yes.
Yeah, she was the other woman.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And do you know if your ex-husband or Glenn has read your book?
I do not know if my ex-husband has. He did ask to read it in advance, and I said sure. And then I said, but let me just ask my publisher. And they said, oh, absolutely not. But here's the thing. It was legally vetted, as all, big release memoirs that have living people in them are. They've got lawyers that do nothing but check for liability in what you've written. And I spoke with the attorney who had vetted my book when my ex-husband asked if he could read it. And she said, so here's the thing. I have vetted so many memoirs. And she said, I have never read one where the author was as kind to her ex as you were about yours. That being said, he's not going to like it. So there's no point in, letting him see it in advance. So there was that. Glenn has. I know he has. He listened to the audiobook. He also has a hardback. And he loved it, actually. He said he loved having my voice fill his house. He said, thank you for immortalizing us in such a beautiful way. And he said it was really difficult to relive, the experiences of his behavior at that time. And, he's grown a lot, as I have, maybe not quite as much, but he actually loved it.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm amazed by that, and yet I'm sure you feel like you know him a little bit. It's not wholly surprising, is it? It's that part of him that I fell in love with, right? The part of him that who was only young chronologically. He's very much an old soul. So.
Have you been able to really allow yourself to deeply absorb the success and the reaction to this memoir?
No. It's been a really interesting journey for me because it is surreal. It really, really is. I have talked to my friends, when you get to our stage in life, we're typically accustomed to operating in our sort of sphere of excellence, right? We know what we're doing, and we're probably pretty good at it by now. And with the writing of this book, because I've never taken a writing class, I've never even taken a writing workshop in my life, and writing this book, I was catapulted out of my sphere of excellence and into my sphere of knowing nothing. And it's very destabilizing to be in a place where the stakes are extraordinarily high and you don't even know enough to ask good questions.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it was
You're a babe in the woods.
I was, and I kind of laugh and say I went full Howard Hughes during the writing of this book. I mean, I just descended into creative, obscurity and, isolation. And because I was in a constant state of struggling with this voice, that was just screaming at me. You have no training, you have no, you're an imposter, you can't do this. This is, and this tiny little voice on the other side going, maybe you're wrong, maybe you're wrong, maybe you're wrong, maybe you're wrong, and just trying to give that quiet the mean loud voice and trust the little voice that believed. But it was hard. I mean, it was emotionally extraordinarily hard.
And were you working with your beloved therapist during the writing of this book, or had she already died?
She'd already died.
Oh my goodness.
It was
Were you
so
hearing
hard.
her voice as you were writing?
I can't say that I was. I did experience an enormous amount of grief because the book sold the end of June, and so I was really happy that she was able to know all of that, because it went to auction and it was kind of dramatic the way it sold, and that was all really great. And
your success and that celebration of look what I did.
And she always so believed in me. And then I immediately went on a 6-week driving trip that a lot of the the stuff in Taos and Santa Fe and Sedona and a lot of that stuff was written on that trip. And then when I got back, my first session with her, well, I guess my first session, she just wanted to hear about the trip and how the writing was going. But then the second week when I went back, she told me that while I was gone, she had been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. She had had polio as a child. And apparently there are a lot of terrible health ramifications as you age. So she was elderly. She was almost 80, but man, that woman had never lost a brain cell. And she was, her body was very racked from, a lifetime of, disability from the polio and other things because of that. But her mind was sharp, and her energy, I'd never seen anything like the way that woman could be present with you in this soft and, open and embracing energy. But boy, when she pulled up, something else, it was like she physically expanded into the room. I really described it at the time and ever since as my only real experience in person of witnessing the pulling up of goddess energy.
Oh, wow.
She was so powerful when she pulled that in, and she just had mastery of it. It was crazy. She was brilliant and amazing. Maybe I tapped into her energy. Maybe she was supporting me. I certainly want to believe that. I don't know. I'm not one of those people that can sort of feel, the presence of energetic beings on the other side of the veil. That's never been something that I can do, although, I'm not saying it's not happening because,
Right.
I've experienced enough things now to know that there are
something's going on.
There are things we do not understand and cannot explain, and that doesn't mean they're not true. So, but yes, Barbara, she was and is just one of the most important people in my life. Absolutely.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
And isn't it lovely that you get to be that for people?
Oh, I hope so.
I'm sure
really
you
hope
do.
so.
I mean, I love the fact that you're just taking, your gifts and expanding your reach by doing this kind of thing.
Oh, it's been the experience of it for me, and I say this when I talk about podcasting and interviewing, has been nothing short of miraculous. The people that I've been able to speak with and learn from and know, it has helped me become more optimistic and a happier person, I think, because I get to spend time with people who are doing really beautiful things that are helping other people. And so it's so reinforcing that, there's good that exists even in a world right now that is so broken and in such pain.
In so many ways.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I think that one of the really beautiful things about being, our age is that if we choose this, because obviously some people, pull in, but if we are willing to really expand ourselves into this stage of life and bring every experience that we've had, every joy and heartbreak to the experience of being this age and stage in life, that our impact is so much more, it has so much more potential because we are bringing so much more. We live in a society that tends to sort of worship youth, but God, would you be 20 again? Not in a million years. No way. So, yeah.
Margaret Mead had a great quote. She said, "There's nothing like the zest of a postmenopausal woman."
I love that.
Rebecca, where can people learn more about you and see your gorgeous gardening and find out more about your book?
Oh, thank you. Well, I have actually lots of places. I have a website. It's RebeccaWinn.com, and that's RebeccaWinn. And so there's lots on there. I have quite a few social media venues. So I have over 600,000 followers on.
Oh my goodness!
On one of my social media pages, but it's not under my name. It's under Whimsical Gardens. So it's Facebook.com/Whimsical Gardens, and that is a place where I post images, beautiful images of nature, and then a lot of times I will write things that are kind of like the book, like my worldview through this image. I don't always do that, but sometimes I do. Sometimes I'll do sort of a horticultural lesson. Sometimes I do just a hey, isn't this cool? And when I travel, like when I went on that transformational trip to New Zealand, and when I went on that 6-week driving trip by myself through the Southwest, I was posting horticulture from where I was. So I have this beautiful visual diary of New Zealand and other travel. So Facebook.com/Whimsical Gardens. And then there's also Facebook.com/Winn Rebecca. So last name, first name, and that is my author page. That is brand new, just a month or a couple of months old. But I do not post a lot about my book on my Whimsical Gardens page. I mean, I do post some, but more information about my book and speaking and if we ever get to travel again, will be there. And then I'm also on Instagram, sort of both of those incarnations. So it's whimsical.gardens on Instagram for nature, and then it's RebeccaWinn.writer. I'm claiming being a writer.
Yay!
On Instagram.
I would say it's high time for you to claim being a writer. Rebecca Winn, author of 100 Daffodils. It has been an honor and a delight to speak with you, and thank you for sharing your experience with us. It has really been, it was such a lovely book, and I was so sad when it was over and so excited to be able to have a conversation with you today. And I know that your journey of transformation will have an effect on people who are suffering and struggling and stuck and afraid, and that they can see that there's another side that they can get through.
Well, I certainly hope so. It would be a great gift to me to be a gift to them.
Thank you so much for joining us on Zestful Aging. If you like the podcast, please share it with some of your friends. I love to hear from my listeners. Send me an email at NicoleChristina.com. It's no secret that everyone's feeling pretty restless and unsettled right now. Our lives are upside down, and the future is feeling pretty uncertain. But if you're anything like me, organizing my stuff can help me feel a little calmer. It's something I can do to help me feel a little more in control and in charge of my own life. If you think decluttering could help you feel better and you could use a little assistance with that, check out the online course I've developed with professional organizer and designer Carrie Luderin. It's called Too Much Stuff. And Too Much Stuff is different from other courses or articles or guidance you may have used up. We give you clear steps to deal with the clutter and the tools to help you face the overwhelming feelings and the emotions that come up when we're going through our clutter. And a lot of those emotions are just feeling anxious or guilty or just basically flooded with a lot of different confusing feelings. The course is really practical. It's realistic. The lessons are short and punchy, and they're really manageable. We're not trying to set you up for some long exploratory, super in-depth, burdensome experience. We want something really helpful for you right now. We all need help with our anxiety. So being surrounded by more calm and less chaos can really help. So now's a good time to clear out the clutter so we can focus on what's really important in our lives. So find out more at zestfulaging.com. You'll see more about this under the web courses tab. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email at zestfulaging@gmail.com. Thanks so much. And stay tuned next week for another interview with a fascinating and inspiring guest.